Welcome to the Richmond Film Network podcast, your all-access pass to the world of independent cinema. Each week, we go beyond the credits and sit down with the creatives who turn vision into reality. Tune in weekly to find out who's on the RFN pod.
Hello and welcome to the Richmond Film Network podcast. I'm Lisa Giles, and today we have a very special guest, Corbin Rowell. Corbin, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Lisa. Thanks so much for having me on here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being with us. Corbin, let's start at the very beginning. I think we first met in, 2019 through the Richmond 48-hour horror film project when you directed The Collector's Chest. It might have been before that, but that's my memory.
Yeah, I want to say it was 2019 because I did the Summer 48 in 2019, so I was like a co-writer on that team for, I think it was Dan Lee, who directed Agent 48, that comedy. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
So that was one of the first like narrative things I worked on. That was the first 48 I participated in. But yeah, first time directing was The Collector's Chest in 2019. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So 2019, and I've been seeing your work ever since then. Of course, Collector's Chest won numerous awards that year. Second place, best film. You've had several projects since then. We Were Desperate, Sutherland, Chime, and now A Raven's Call. And I know you've been working on that for some time. So how would you describe your evolution as a filmmaker from 2019 to now?
So just for a little background, I didn't go to film school. I graduated from Christopher Newport in 2017, and I majored in biology. And I've always had that love for filmmaking, and I always would film videos with friends in like my backyard, do like funny skits. So there's always been that, creatively minded drive to do stuff. I've had a YouTube channel where I make gaming videos. I've done a whole bunch of creative endeavors. I've had my own podcast as well. So basically in 2017, when I graduated from college, I was like, I think 20, 30 years from now, you don't want to wake up with regrets. I'm like, even though you didn't, I didn't major in film. I was like, is it hard to break into? Could I do it? And then I had a friend of mine that I met who was actually my neighbor, who you and I both know, TJ Neveldine, who was the producer on The Collector's Chest, actually, who recently passed away. And he was the first person that kind of pushed me in the direction to do filmmaking. He was like, yeah, who cares that you didn't major in it? My brother didn't major in it, and he's a successful filmmaker. His name is Mark Neveldine. He directed the Crank movies and Gamer with Gerard Butler. And so basically he was the one that kind of pushed me, like, if this is something that you want to do, it doesn't matter if you majored in it, go do it. So 2018 was me shooting music videos with my friend TJ, and then 2019 we did The Collector's Chest together. But 2019 was really my first year doing like narrative filmmaking. That was like the start of the year where I was like, okay, I want to actually start working on short films. So I didn't know what I was doing, and still feels like I don't know what I'm doing because I've only been doing this like narratively as a career for like 6-7 years. So there's still a lot that I'm learning, but I think since 2019, I've definitely learned a lot more what I like to do, what I don't like to do, like trying to develop more of like a style, if that makes sense. Like, play around with horror, play around with comedy. What genres do I like? What kind of stories do I like to tell? Trying to improve my writing is a huge one, because like the stuff that I wrote back in 2019 was just like not good, in my opinion, very dialogue heavy, and I've tried to scale it back and do less is more. And A Raven's Call was one of those that I thought a lot about, especially from a dialogue perspective, with having some of the dialogue translated into Cherokee. I was like, you can't have a lot of dialogue because that's just more to translate, and that's going to be a headache. So for me, since 2019, it's been more of just trying to get experience, work on sets, kind of create a network, a group of friends that I can rely on and make movies with. So yeah, it's a matter of just connecting and figuring out what type of stories and what type of films I like to make.
And speaking of that network, I have been seeing your name in credits in a lot of films that I, didn't realize that you had a part in through 48s and so forth. You want to talk about some of those side projects where you're not the director, but you are, most often I think I'm seeing you as editor.
Yeah. So I really like editing. It's probably the thing that I've been doing the longest. So like I took a break from doing the 48 last year, and I worked on a couple other films in the summer of 2024. I worked on Caitlin Whitaker's film. I am drawing a blank on
New
it.
Dawn.
it wasn't New Dawn. It was the other one she did back in the summer. I don't think, because the New Dawn was the horror one that she directed. Absolutely just drawing a blank on it right now. But she directed one for this summer 48 last year, and she reached out to me and asked me to do that. And then in the not fall but December of 2024, Will Sedaros reached out, and he had this big project, this big undertaking of doing Humanity, which I know he's talked about on this podcast before, but it was something that has not really been done before, which is shooting a short film in all 7 continents, which was pretty insane. So getting to be an editor on that, or kind of the lead editor on that, was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work trying to organize all the files coming in from different continents. It was insane. It was hectic. But we had an awesome team. We had an awesome post-production supervisor. And so like when friends reach out to me and they're like, hey, can you help out with this film, or can you edit this? I'm always, I try to do it if I'm able to, because this is a very small community here. You want to help people out as much as you can, because a lot of people are in the same boat as I am. A lot of people here don't do filmmaking full time. They're just trying to find their legs with this too. So yeah, for me, it was more of like, just like, Caitlin's my friend, Will's my friend, I'm going to help them out. I know I helped David out on one of his films. I wasn't the editor for it, but I did help out on set for his film. Yeah, for David Fritzon's film 3 Minutes, that he is still in post-production on. So but like I said, I try to bounce around a little bit. It's nice to take a back seat and like edit, and also just be on set and watch other people do their thing, because I do like to learn from watching other directors and seeing how they operate. How do they talk to actors? How do they talk to their crew? So it is fun to kind of take a step back a little bit and not have to worry so much about steering the ship, so to speak.
Google is my friend. The film was Fatal Connection.
Thank you. Fatal Connection. That's right. Yeah, that was really fun to work on. We were down to the wire. I think we had like a few minutes left to submit that. That was really fun, and I think that was Caitlin's first time directing, and I could tell that she was stressed a little bit there towards the end. She was very sleep deprived, and I just told her, I was like, hey, sit back. I will do everything in my power. I was like, girl, I got you. So I put on my big boy hat and tried to see this through the finish line. And I'm happy that she's happy with it. At the end of the day, it's like the awards and stuff, accolades, whatever. That's cool. But like, as long as like the director, in that case, Caitlin, or whether it's Will, as long as they're happy with it and we work well together, then I'm happy. That's really all that matters.
So let's switch to A Raven's Call, which has been taking up all of your time lately. Talk to me about how that story came to life, and it's been several years in the making. So getting it from story to finished.
Yeah, it has been a journey, and honestly, I could talk about this for an hour, but I won't. So the idea came initially from, I believe I was playing a video game at the time, and there was some sort of indication in the game that the evil spirit or entity that was the antagonist of the game, because you see these, like, I was walking around in the game and there was like some teepees or something in there, and my immediate thought was, oh, this is another one of those Indian burial ground tropes, right? And then something just kind of clicked in my brain there, and I talked to a few friends about it, and I was like, why is it always Indian burial grounds, or why is it always, you always see native characters in the same roles in a lot of these movies. They usually are just there to deliver superstitious dialogue and all that stuff. An example was, there's a horror film that came out a few years ago called Antlers, and it's one of the many horror films that is based off of like the whole Wendigo and Skinwalker mythology, which is everybody's go-to Native American legend or folklore that they tell stories about. It's always Skinwalkers, it's always Wendigos. And that was a case of like, the main cast was basically a bunch of white people, and they had one native character, and the second he was on screen in the beginning, I said, this guy is going to deliver some superstitious exposition, and he's going to dip out, and he's not going to be in it. And I was 100% right. And I don't know, it's just kind of like, it was just kind of a mixture of things, and seeing that and reflecting on how Native Americans have been portrayed in media, I was like, why hasn't there ever been a horror film that's not about Wendigos and Skinwalkers that stars actual native characters, not having them be a side character or just delivering exposition and then dipping out for the film. Like, how many times have you seen a film where they are the main focus and it's their story? So I was like, okay, I wanted to do that. I wanted to tell a story. At the time, this is probably, I would say maybe 2020, 2021. This is when I was working on, I believe, my fan film, Batman Dawn of Fear. And I was... At the time, it was the simple concept was Native American-led horror short film where they speak Native dialogue in the film, and the Native characters were the main focus. That was what I knew I wanted it to be. And then when I started exploring, I was like, okay, I want to do an Eastern United States tribe. What tribes are over here? I looked at Powhatan, I looked at Pamunkey, and naturally Cherokee is, one of the bigger ones. Obviously, a lot of people are very familiar with their mythologies and folklore. I started researching different Cherokee folklores, and the one that I landed on was the Ravenmocker because it sounded cool to me, and it sounded something that could be feasible on a limited budget. And to give people context, the Ravenmocker is essentially kind of this demon or spirit or entity in Cherokee folklore, and it preys on the sick and dying. It's not strong. It's not some big monster like Bigfoot or... And it's not like a skinwalker or anything like that. It's not this. It's not a monster film. It's nothing like that. It's an entity. It's a spirit. It's something that preys, like I said, on the sick and dying, and it takes their life force by ripping their heart out, and it consumes their heart, and it takes the years that person would have lived. So, like, if it's a younger person that gets sick and the Ravenmocker consumes their heart, they're going to live however many years that person would have lived, 40, 50, whatever. And I just thought that was super cool. I was like, okay, we can probably do that on a very, very small budget. And so that was what I went with. I thought it was the coolest one to do. And then at that point, it was a matter of writing the script and, figuring out how is this going to go. From the very beginning, it was more of a short proof of concept. It was going to be a small script about two Cherokee brothers who stumble upon the Ravenmocker. There's only going to be one other character that was going to help them out, and it was only supposed to be about maybe 5 to 7 minutes long. But what we did was we set up a crowdfunding campaign for it. It was my first crowdfunding campaign I've ever done for really a short film before, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. Shot in the dark, whatever. So my producer, Xavier Velasquez, and we set up a crowdfunding campaign. And he was also the DP and colors on A Raven's Call as well. So, he was the first person I really talked to about this, and he was on board. He thought it was a cool idea. So we set up a crowdfunding campaign, shot a video for it, and basically saying, hey, this is what we want to do. This is what it's about. Trying to raise X amount of money. And a lot of people were very supportive of that. One lady in particular, her name is JJ Trezevant, I believe I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. She found our crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter. And funnily enough, she said she had some disposable income and wanted to do something with like birds. She wanted to donate her money to some sort of nonprofit that had to do with like bird rehabilitation. I can't exactly remember. But she stumbled upon Raven's Call on Kickstarter. And she was like, okay. And then she watched the video and she was like, I love the energy and passion that you have for this. She's like, you basically name a number and I will donate it.
Wow.
And she contributed, I would say, close to probably half the funds for the $15,000 that we raised, which is insane. Wow. This is a person I have never met in person. I have talked to her over the phone several times. I have sent her the film already. So it was incredible to get that kind of support from somebody that I didn't even know. And naturally you have friends and family and people contributing, and those who can't contribute, they just share it, which still goes a long way. And then it was a matter of just finding the Cherokee actors. That was hard to do. I put out casting calls. And then eventually I went down to Cherokee, North Carolina, drove 6.5 hours down there and went to, hope I'm pronouncing this right, Akunalufti Village, which is their kind of like living historical village, kind of like Henricus Historical Park a little bit, where they like take you through, everything's very period specific. They take you through the different buildings and tell you, the role it had in the tribe and the history and stuff. And that was when I met Taylor Wachacha and Rachel Blythe and talked to them a little bit about the film. And then they were brought on later, and they were kind of like the two main actors. Actually, Rachel joined towards the end. We had another actress, but she could not... She couldn't do it to other obligations, so we had Rachel join. She was eager to fill that space, and I'm so grateful she did. and she played Yona. She was the co-star alongside Taylor in the film, and I worked with Taylor to try to make sure everything was as historically accurate as possible. I'm not perfect. I'm not a historian. I'm a filmmaker, but we tried to keep everything. Whenever I had questions about would they have this back then? Is it like what is period specific? He would help me answer those, and he also helped me get the script translated. So I tried for a while to get certain sections of the script where the two native characters, the two Cherokee characters, were talking together in Cherokee. That was a very, very important thing from the very beginning. Was I want these native characters to speak their native language. Before it was even Cherokee, I said I want the characters to speak their native tongue to each other. And then once I landed on Cherokee and I started learning more about the history, I wanted it even more because I learned from calling different people and talking about the film and translating the dialogue. Somebody I spoke to in Cherokee, I believe it was Heather Owl, she told me that when Cherokee kids, I think it was in the early 1900s, they were punished, like physically abused for trying to recite actual Cherokee language and stuff like that. So once I learned that, and learning that the Cherokee language is borderline extinct and only like a couple hundred people on the planet even speak it, I was like, okay, we need to have this in the film because number one, I want a way to preserve that language. You know what I mean? When this film is released, I want this film to live online where people can experience it as many times as they want, and the Cherokee language that these characters speak is front and center. It was a very important part. Like I said, from the very beginning, I wanted these characters to speak their native tongue, and the film was also set at a time where a lot of these Europeans and white folks have already come over from Europe, and there's a lot of change happening. The deer trade is starting to kick off. This is before the first big smallpox outbreak, I believe in like the 1730s. And I really wanted this to be like, them holding on to their culture, from like a meta perspective, from like the filmmaking perspective, but also from a story perspective. These characters, they speak English. They're integrated with these Europeans and these Scottish folks. They've integrated some of the Scottish folks in their tribe. And, they've known each other for a couple decades. They've been trading for a while, but these characters still speak Cherokee to each other. And that's them still holding on to that part that, in a world that's changing rapidly with, immigrants and diseases and so much stuff happening in America, or what was going to be America. I wanted them to hold on to that bit of culture. And that was very much a staple of this film for me. I said I wouldn't ramble, and here I am. I think I've talked for 10 minutes without taking a breath.
You are ticking off the answers to all the questions that I've prepared, but then
I told you I could talk about this for an hour. There's so much to it. It's crazy.
I am enjoying every bit of it.
Good.
So yeah, I think that's so admirable, that approach that you took, the demands that you wanted and did achieve with the authenticity of the characters and the language. Now, it was set in 18th century, and so you're talking about being on a budget and what's feasible in filmmaking and what you can do. So tell me about your location, your wardrobe, the tools, weapons. So tell me about sourcing all of those and making those authentic to the story and the time period.
Yeah, so doing a period piece, people advise indie filmmakers from doing it because it's just expensive. Because like obviously, there's no vehicles. There's like you can't hear a plane overhead. Like there's just so much to it. You're supposed to be transported back 300 years ago, and doing that on a $15,000 budget is harder than it sounds. And it's a 30-minute short film, but like still, it was very, very difficult to do that. So I talked to Taylor about trying to keep the Cherokee authenticity in terms of like the wardrobe, what medicines they used from like the yarrow plant. Like I tried every little detail. I was like, is this accurate? Would they use this? What would they trade during this time? How much would it cost? Is this $10? Is it $5? Is it 20? A lot of stuff I researched myself, but a lot of it I asked Taylor about. And in terms of the other props, we had our production designer, Sherry Ward, who I met on... I can't remember. I think I may have met her on Caitlin's film, but I worked with Sherry, and she was so eager to do this, and she thought it was an awesome idea. So she did a lot of the heavy lifting too when it came to researching like what was period specific in terms of clothes and in terms of like weapons that they would use and all that stuff. So, but in terms of the location itself, that plays a very, very big role in this. The location is a character in and of itself. So, over half the film is set in this fictional Scottish village, but we shot it at Henricus Historical Park in Chester, Virginia. I'd been there as a kid on field trips and stuff, but I went there to location scout as early as 2020 with my wife. This is like a few months after COVID, and we were looking around, and I was letting the brain juices start flowing, and I went back a dozen more times, to talk to the people there and stuff, and it was great how accommodating they were for us. They were accommodating on the fact that we had a smaller budget. They told us what the rental price would be per day, and I was like, hey, we don't have any money. What do I have to do to get half of that? And they were like, we can do it for half that. And I was like, wow, you guys are a godsend. Thank you. But the thing that made it really challenging with shooting at Henricus Park was we were limited to 8 hours. Now, anybody who has been on a set before, does any sort of filmmaking, 8 hours, and that's, again, not 8 hours of filming. That's from you getting on set to taillights. 8 hours is not a lot of time. And we had 3 days, 8-hour days to get everything we needed. And yeah, I think the last time we may have run over 30 minutes or an hour, and they were super accommodating, super polite about it. We had somebody from their team, Amanda, I think her last name is Tyree, if I'm getting it correctly. She works at the park. She helped out with wardrobe and stuff like that too. She answered a billion questions. So did Morgan Floyd, who was kind of my main point of contact. So she was accommodating for that. So, and on some level with the set design, a lot of it was already there for us. We moved some stuff around. Sherry brought in some extra props and stuff. But the fact that we were able to shoot that at Henricus Historical Park really, I think, gave it a lot more of a authentic feel to it, right? And I know some of those buildings are not period accurate because, like, I talked to the people there. I was like, well, tell me about, like, what year... Like I was like, basically tell me about these structures, and some of them were like, yeah, this would have been like something the English would have made in the 1500s, and this is something, and it's like, well, beggars can't be choosers. I don't have the I can't just be like, hey, let's build a set with Scottish 18th century house, like, you know what I mean? It's like, I was like, okay, this is one of those things where it's like, it may not be 1,000% historically accurate, but this is what we have, and it looks authentic, and people aren't going to know unless they're a historian or unless I reveal it on a podcast like I just did. But yeah, so the location itself was amazing to use. The rest of it we shot out in the woods in Chesterfield outside my parents' property. But yeah, the whole bulk of the story takes place. The story really kicks off when the characters go to this town and they're trading with their friend there. And yeah, basically shit hits the fan after that. I don't know if I can curse on here or not, but
sure you can.
Yeah. So it's yeah, the real inciting action kind of kicks off, and there's some conflict, and then the Ravenmocker kind of sneaks its way into the picture when shit's going down between the Europeans or the Scottish and the Cherokee characters. So but yeah, that location was fun to use. I'm glad we were able to use it, but 8-hour days was tough. I don't know if I would do it again. That was really hard, for sure.
So you talked a little bit about your lead actors. Tell me about the rest of your cast and your crew. I know you were writer, director, editor, and sound designer. Did you leave any jobs for anybody else, Corbin?
No, there was tons of no. So we had a pretty decent cast and crew. Pretty decently sized. In terms of the cast, we had Michael Jacobson. We had Jamie Verosco, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. She played the character of Mary. We had Marcus Lawrence as John. So Marcus Lawrence came in at the very, very end. I think a week or two before we started shooting, we had to let one of our actors go. And I was desperate to fill this role. I was like, I don't know how we're going to do this without this character. I guess I'll figure it out and conceptualize, brainstorm an idea of how we can tell this story without the character of John. Because as you've seen the movie, John is like a very important character and kind of like the catalyst of what happens. And we weren't going to have him. And I was like, oh God. So I asked around. David Fritzen recommended I contact Marcus Lawrence. He's worked with him on a number of short films and sang his praises. And I contacted Marcus, and my first question that I asked every single one of the European, the white actors was, "Can you do a Scottish accent?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do it? Can you do a passable Scottish accent?" And Marcus, did an awesome job. And yeah, we brought him on the film literally like a week and a half, 2 weeks before we started shooting, and I'm so grateful that he was a part of it. He was fun to have around for sure.
I was impressed with the accents.
Yeah, they did an awesome job. They did a pretty decent job. I was really happy with how everybody did the accents and the translated Cherokee dialogue and stuff. I'll get to that because that was very, very difficult. But yeah, and then after that we had Mark Jeter, who's another local. He played the doctor, who's only in one quick scene, but Mark Jeter was there and played that role. And then I believe I'm trying to make sure I didn't forget everybody. There's like 7 or 8 actors in it. And then our last one was Brittany Myra Smith, who played the Ravenmocker. She came all the way up from Georgia to be in this film.
Wow.
I put a casting call out there and asked for you need to be Cherokee. Native American is one thing, but I would prefer if the character playing the Ravenmocker was Cherokee. And I put that out there on Backstage or whatever it was, Actors Access, and I don't know that I really got anybody reaching out. I just, people who were definitely not Native American were submitting for that, and I was like, okay. But Brittany, the stars aligned, and Brittany reached out, and when I talked to her, I was like, so you would be willing to drive up and be a part of this film? And she was all, yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. And she was a trooper. We put her in the Ravenmocker costume. There were times where she had to lay on the ground. I think she was even barefoot when we were shooting one of the last scenes, and it was cold. It was like 3 a.m. in the middle of November. She didn't complain one time. Not awesome. Once. And the only time she didn't even complain. She was just like, "Can I get up now?" In between takes, I was like, "Yeah, sorry." But that was not even complaining. But she didn't complain, not a negative word out of her mouth. Everybody was in great spirits. The cast was super, super fun to work with, and it was just amazing, just seeing it all come together. It was very, very surreal. Because like I said, it's been a long production process from writing it to seeing it happen. So actually being on set that first day, and I think we shot the trading post scene first. It's the 3rd scene where the initial conflict happens. We shot that on day 1 at Henricus Park. And we had all of our, main actors minus the doctor. And I was like, this is so cool seeing this come together. But yeah, so all the actors did an amazing job. The crew, there's so many people to mention. Again, I'd be here for an hour talking about everybody who had a hand in this. Obviously, Xavier was our cinematographer and colorist. He's the reason the film looks so damn pretty. And we did sound design together, and local VFX artist Luke Shaw, who's worked on a number of short films in the area. He was our VFX guy and really is one of the people that made this film look so great. If it wasn't for some of the visual effects and stuff in there, it wouldn't have worked at all. Especially the very, very last scene, which I don't want to spoil too much. I know you and I talked about that before we started recording, but it's I don't want to spoil too much for people, but without Luke, that last scene would not have worked at all. So it just turned out so well. And then the music is just another thing. So this is the first time that I ever worked with a composer on a short film in the 6-7 years I've been doing this. So Xavier brought her on. Her name is Diva Montazeri. Again, apologies if I mispronounced the last name. But she was the second person we brought into this project. So she's been here from the very beginning. And first composer I've ever worked with, and I swear she's the only one I want to work with, because she was not only just a joy to work with and just so kind, so excited to do this project. She's just damn good at what she does. I mean, when I heard the music, when I heard some of these tracks, I just sat there and just listened to them and just got chills. Because, seeing the picture lock last year was one thing, but when we put the music in and started seeing it play with some of these scenes, I was like, I thought it was good before, but seeing it with the music, I was like, oh my God, This is nuts. It just elevates the whole story to a whole different level. That it's really hard to explain. It's one of those things you just kind of have to see it. But yeah, and there's so many other people that had a hand in this. Like I said, I'd be here all day talking about it. But it was just absolutely so, like every single person from craft services, which my wife planned all the meals and got all that scheduled, to, producers and DP, crowdfunding, script supervisors, wardrobe, whoever, everybody, big or small, had a role in this and helped making this come together. And it was just, yeah, absolute joy to see it. It was very difficult putting this together, but it was, had a lot of hurdles, but it was just beautiful at every stage to see it come together, because there were times I didn't think it would. And yeah, everybody just really pulled out all the stops for sure.
So, what emotional or thematic core did you want to communicate to viewers, or what are you hoping your viewers take away from the film?
So, from the very beginning, the initial draft of this film it was about two brothers. It was about a younger brother and a little brother kind of encountering this Ravenmocker. And I guess I just, modeled that naturally after my relationship with my older brother. We would always, like, even when we were kids, we would tell stories in the backyard, tell stories with our toys and our, like, playroom and stuff. So, like, from the very beginning, he was the first person I ever told stories with. And I think basing that relationship off of the little brother, kind of younger brother, like, there was an older sibling and younger sibling dynamic from the very, very beginning. And obviously it changed over time, but it ended up with the character of Tawodi, played by Taylor, who's a little bit older, a lot more serious. And then you have the younger, quote, sibling character, but they're actually friends. But they basically are siblings. So it's never explicitly stated in the story itself, but they are part of the same clan. And what I learned about Cherokee history was that if you were part of the same clan, you were essentially brother and sister. It was, I believe, punishable by death if you tried to marry somebody within the same clan as you. So by all accounts, Tawodi and Yona, these two characters, are, there may not be blood relatives, but that is his sister. He would die for her. He would do anything for her. And I think, that's kind of what, like, I guess the core of the story was about for me. It's about not only friendship, but that, like, it's like, it's that deep love you have for your friends and for your siblings, for your chosen family, whoever. And Tawodi in the story, without giving too much away, would do anything for Yona, and faces down this otherworldly creature to protect the person he loves the most. And I know that if my brother was in the same situation, he would have done what Tawodi did in that story. Again, without giving anything away, he would have done some of the stuff Tawodi would have done without thinking twice about it. And to me, that's what friendship, that's what love is, whether, again, it's family or whether it's friends, surrounding yourself with people who would literally fight an otherworldly demon for you, I guess, is what that story is about. Surround yourself with people who would literally do anything for you, and that's what those characters were. And it helped that they were actually friends in real life. Like, they're actually very good friends in real life. And they both lived in Cherokee for years. They worked together onto the local play there, onto these hills. So they have a history together. And I think Rachel even told me they may be distant relatives. I think they're actually distant cousins. So, it's having that camaraderie with other people in your clan was something I wanted to highlight. And also the balance between there being some Europeans who have good intent. There are some characters who are friendly and do have good intentions and just want to trade and just want to, not have any harm or any ill will with these Cherokee characters. And then you have other characters who are just a little bit more prejudiced, a little bit more, a little bit more hateful and hostile. And I definitely wanted to highlight the balance, because there was that. It wasn't all just like, oh, those are native people, we're going to kill them. You know what I mean? The Cherokee did have a good relationship with, like, some of the Scottish and Irish that came over. They traded, they intermingled. Some of the white people joined their tribe and stuff. So I wanted to highlight that there was a history here between all these characters. And there's more to it than meets the eye. It's not just simply like, oh, this person is evil and doesn't like them because they're Cherokee or whatever. Like, there's a lot more into it. It's a world of change. There's a lot happening for the characters on both sides, and there's a lot of unknowns here. And it was just amazing to see it all come together and see these people see these actors just like give amazing performances and bring these characters to life. Because it's one thing to write it, but it's another thing to see it happen. And yeah, I think having that friendship between Tawodi and Yona was really the backbone of this story for me, for sure.
So I think you said that the project started in 2020 and you just completed post-production.
Yeah.
5 years, Corbin.
Yeah.
So
Roughly,
what was your favorite part of the process, and what was your least favorite part of the process? And for your next independent project, what have you learned that you'll take forward to your next project?
I think the biggest thing I would learn from this is probably bringing on even more producers to help take some of that weight off. Because I know you said that earlier, like, oh, you did this, you did writer, director, producer, editor. It's just kind of the whole guerrilla indie filmmaking thing where you're used to kind of doing everything yourself. And I can be a control freak at times, and I'm just kind of the whole like, F it, I'll just do it myself in a lot of ways. So I guess I need to be better about putting my trust in other people and, trying to find people and bring people on who can take some of that like weight off my shoulders a little bit. And, it was just me and Xavier who were producing this together. And I think having a couple extra producers who would have I could have asked them to do like A, B, and C probably would have helped a little bit. I think this was also the first time I had a script supervisor. So Vivian Owen reached out to me and asked to be a part of this when she learned about it. And she was another one that joined super late. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I've never had a script supervisor before, but how did I not have one before? Right. So that's another one where I'm like, you got to have one of these on every project. Production designer, never really had one before. I will always make sure to include one on any film that I make from now on. And I think, it's hard to really explain what the best part of it was. There's stages at there's parts about every stage that I like. I like the writing stage because there's the possibilities are endless. But it also has its pitfalls. You're like, does this make sense? Are people going to like this? Is the story going to resonate? But the writing process is fun because it's uncharted territory. The options are limitless. Shooting is fun because I like being on set. I like working with actors. It is stressful, especially when you're limited to 8 hours. But it's just seeing everybody of different backgrounds and different skill sets come together, and people who are a lot more talented than I am, help me and teach me and show me how to make a kick-ass film isn't always a rewarding thing to see as well. I would say one of the hardest things was trying to get the Cherokee dialogue right. So it's a very difficult language to learn, and Taylor and Rachel were talking about this to me, that it's a very difficult language to learn. And again, only not very many people speak it today. And when we got on set, we were shooting late into the night during this campfire scene towards the end of the film. And I know we were all tired and it was late, but they were there was a lot of mess ups there in some of their lines with getting it right, because again they knew a couple little lines, or they knew some words and stuff in Cherokee, but this is entire sections of dialogue. So this is different than just reciting a Cherokee prayer or saying hello, goodbye, whatever, than just knowing the occasional word. This is like lines of dialogue they had to know. And there was a lot of stopping and starting and resetting of takes, and we would just keep rolling for 5 to 8 minutes. And I'd be like, okay, say the line again. All right, now say it again. So it was several hours of just trying to get that scene right. And I remember being on set being like, I'm editing this. I'm going to make this work. I'll make it work. And then that was something that took a while to edit, was the Cherokee sequences, especially the campfire one, because like I said, because it was so late and because there were mistakes in reciting the Cherokee dialogue and stuff, I had to cut around it and all that stuff. But I think we made it work with sound design and with mixing and with editing. We were able to make those conversations flow a lot better. So that was something that was a real challenge while filming, that we were able to make work on in the final edit. So I guess another thing that I should have done there that I messed up with is I should have been more adamant about scheduling like times for us to sit down and go through the Cherokee lines together. Because I know they practiced them beforehand, but I should have been a lot more, like I said, adamant about that. The other thing that was really challenging with the short film, and I'm again going to try not to spoil it, but the first cut of the film, Xavier and I really liked the first 2 acts of this film. We did not like the last scene. The last scene was not working. There was coverage that we got of the Raven Mocker as Brittany as in costume as the Raven Mocker, like walking over and interacting with some of the characters and stuff, and there were shots that just were not working. It just did not look intimidating. It didn't look scary. It was before VFX too, so it looked a little bit wonky. So we were we were a little bit scared there towards the end. We were putting this together. We were like, I don't know if this last scene is landing. And even the very, very last shot, of the film, and again, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just talking to you here, Lisa. But like the last shot of the film, we got 4 months later after principal photography. Oh. It was the only pickup shot we got in the whole film. It's the very last one, and we had doubles for it. I had my brother-in-law and sister-in-law come in and help out with that very last sequence, and because we didn't have that shot, it ended on the other shot before. But for some reason, when we were on set, I was like, in my mind, I was like, I'm not feeling this, because I feel like having the last frame, the last shot of a film is really important. Like, what's the last image you want to leave viewers with? And what we got in the rough cut and what we shot on set, I was like, I'm not feeling this. This is not hitting the way I want it to. And then when we got the pickup shot later, and then we mixed it with some VFX and obviously with color grading and sound design, having each of those pieces come together, it's like, now when I watch that last shot and I see that last scene, I'm like, holy shit, we got it to work. It really is a puzzle. It really is a puzzle in a lot of ways. You're just like, we have the footage. It's not going to put itself together, but how do we make this work and tell this story in a way that works, that gets the intended reaction? Is it going to make people unsettled? Is it going to creep people out? Are people going to feel something for these characters? And I think spending extra time to get that last shot of the film so we can end it the way that we did was absolutely worth it. And I'm so glad that we did it, because now I love the ending of it. And I didn't when we first liked it. I was like, this is not hitting at all. So there's, like I said, there's little things here and there through every stage that I think we did really well, things that we could do better. But yeah, I've learned a ton of lessons. And like I said, having more hands on set, having more people help out, yeah, it's more expensive to do, but God, it makes the work so much easier than trying to do everything yourself, which is what my history has been for like the last 6 to 7 years. So with each project, I try to bring on more people, and it just makes it so much easier. And I'm just like, man, how did I do this without these people before?
Right.
So yeah, it's it was just awesome for sure.
Have your native actors seen the film yet?
No,
they have not. Oh wow.
So Taylor, if he listens to this, he's going to be punching the wall right now. Taylor and Rachel have been asking. I mean, I've a number of people have been asking me to see it, but especially Taylor. They come from a small town. Cherokee is not a very, very big town, and there's a lot of excitement there with their family, their friends, their coworkers. People are excited for this, and he's been wanting to see it so badly. He asked during the rough cut stage. He asked before visual effects. He asked before we color graded. He's asked at every stage of production to see it, and I'm like, I think I sent him maybe one scene, and that's it. And I feel like such an ass telling people who worked on this, Sherry included, our production designer, has asked many times to see it. And I say this all the time. I say it to my wife all the time. I say, I feel like such an ass being like, you need to wait. But I tell people, I'm like, trust me, if you see this I want them to see it for the first time in a theater, on a big screen, with nice sound, surrounded by family, friends, co-stars, crew, and all that stuff. I'm like, I think it's going to hit a little bit different on an almost like spiritual level than if you just watch this on your phone in your house. I'm telling you, it's going to be memorable. If you like, I want to be there at Cherokee. We're planning a Cherokee premiere and a Richmond premiere, and festivals as well. We're still in the early stages of that, but it's looking like September we'll do both of them potentially. And, you know, I just cannot wait to go to their movie theater down there and, you know, hopefully sell out the theater, because Taylor and Rachel are convinced. They're like, oh yeah, I know 50 people that can, at least 50 people at the top of my head that will be there. And that's how I wanted them to experience this film. It's not because I'm trying to be an ass. No. I'm not trying to, you know, gatekeep this film or anything. I just want people to see it the best way they can, which is surrounded by family and friends in a dark room with a big screen and, you know, big sound, and hear all the work that people put into it, myself included. With the sound design played a huge role in this film. I want people to see X's amazing cinematography on a big screen, the color grading, the performances, everything, the music, everything. I think like it's one thing to see it on YouTube, you know, when it eventually is released on my YouTube channel, but like I want people who were involved in it, I want people to see how much work was put into it and be like, this is what you did. And surrounding it with and being surrounded by their loved ones who are screaming and cheering for them when the credits roll is what I want for these people. Because I know how it feels. I've been there. And I'm like, I want you to feel that same feeling I had whenever I've screened one of my films and people at the end are cheering for it or excited. I remember when I screened Sutherland, people were like, that's it at the end of it. You know, I want them to see that reaction. I want them to see the hype that their loved ones are going to have for it. Because it's so memorable. It's unforgettable for sure.
They will thank you later. When they feel that, they will thank you.
You tell them that. I've been saying that. I'm like, you'll thank me later. Taylor messaged me a couple weeks ago. He goes, it was his birthday, and I wished him happy birthday. And he goes, you know, it'd be a great birthday present. Like, oh, God. He goes, sending me a little short film I've been asking about for a year and a half. And I said, you know, it'd be a better birthday present if you watched said short film surrounded by family and your friends in a big-ass movie theater with awesome sound. I said, that's a better gift I can give you than giving it to you right now. I was like, trust me, it'll be worth it. And you only got to wait a couple more months, man. I'm like, we're going to do a premiere in a couple months. I'm like, you only got 2 more months to wait. You can do it. I promise.
Well, so. I feel privileged to be one of the few who have seen it.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the festival strategy. You said you want to do a screening. Is it North Carolina where they are?
Yeah. So they're in Cherokee, North Carolina. Out in the western part of North Carolina. In the mountains. We were going to screen that. They have a movie theater there that Rachel actually used to work at. I've been in contact with them. As a matter of fact, my contact at the theater is meeting with his supervisors today at like 2 p.m. So literally now, they're having a group meeting and they're going to talk about it and stuff like that. So the plan is to do a Richmond premiere tentatively on September 13th. I haven't officially announced anything on social media yet, but the plan is to do Saturday, September 13th at Firehouse Theater. We've used Firehouse on a number of screenings already, and they're awesome to work with. And it's a nice little intimate space there. So we were going to use them again. And then probably a week or two later, we were going to go down to Cherokee and screen it at there. They have a really nice movie theater in Cherokee, and we were going to screen it there. And at this point, I'm like, trying to figure out those details, trying to make like an updated poster with the characters on it. And I'm trying to also I'm going to cut together a new trailer and try to promote those screenings and stuff. And in terms of festivals, we've submitted to a few. The big one I wanted to do, which Vivian, our script supervisor, told me about, was the Pocahontas Reframe Film Festival, which is like the biggest Native American centered film festival right on the East Coast. So we submitted for that. Hopefully we get in. Again, we just started submitting the festivals. I started doing it on like 4 or 5 days ago. So I'm hoping we get into some. Virginia Film Fest is one of them. We might do one of the, I think we're going to do one of the big ones like Sundance or something like that. We might, shoot for the stars there, but yeah, we're trying to do as many film festivals that we can commute to and make an appearance at and all that stuff. So the plan is, screenings in September, and there will be a few festivals if we get accepted that we will do in like October and November and stuff, and then maybe release the film probably either late fall, maybe early winter. We'll see. I definitely want to incentivize people to come out and see it first, and then we'll put it online probably by the end of the year.
Well, Corbin, this is so exciting. I can't wait. Tell our viewers where they can follow the progress of A Raven's Call and your work in general.
Sure, yeah. So I am most active on Instagram. You can follow me at MadCrabCorb, C-O-R-B, first part of my name. MadCrabCorb on Instagram. You can also follow on Facebook, Mad Crab Productions. Can't miss it. It's a big old purple crab on the page that'll pop up. And then the best thing to keep up, the best place to go to keep up with like the progress of this film is we have an Instagram for the film itself. It's just a Raven's Call _film. And it's also in my bio as well on Instagram. So we're going to keep everybody updated on screenings, postings, when it's going to release, and all that stuff. So yeah, definitely check us out there for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Corbin.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lisa. I appreciate it. This was fun.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Richmond Film Network podcast. Thanks to our guest and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. Tune in next week to see who's on the RFN pod. Until then, keep the cameras rolling.